registered?
I'm sorry?
Are they registered? I'm seeing two names on the screen.
Yeah, they're registered. Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
are they, but they're in the chat room?
Yeah, they're in. Yeah, they can
Okay.
put their questions in the chat. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
So welcome everybody this evening. Thank you for joining us, and thank you to Marie Graham from the Refreshed Home. And I think we're going to learn a lot today about getting your house noticed and sold. And if you're looking for, staging or, tips and advice, then Marie Graham is definitely the person, the professional, the guru to listen to talk to. She's fantastic. She's done several presentations for the Ossining Library now, and both in person and virtual, and she's just great. So, and one more plug, anything going on at the Ossining Library, you can visit our website at ossininglibrary.org. So without further ado, I will hand it over to Marie Graham. Thanks, Marie.
Thank you, James. And not just thank you for, being home at night and running this for, after hours, but just for everything you do. The Ossining Library, I mean, I grew up in Ossining, so it's always near and dear to my heart. But you guys put on such an amazing amount of programs. I literally could live in that library. So
Yeah.
I'd never be bored. So
Yeah.
I thank you so much for that.
Oh, thank you.
So welcome, everyone. This is sort of going to be a fluid and interactive kind of group. We're not a big group, which is nice, which means we can chat and there can be more back and forth. But I'm going to ask questions as we go on that are going to be best with show of hands. So Lowen, Barbara, if you can hear me, if you can put on your camera just to so we can see and have what you have questions about answered, that sort of thing, that would be great. My first question that Alba had posed was, well, I was asking, what do you want to leave here knowing tonight? And Alba, you gave me like a 3-credit college course outline, but that's okay because there is a lot to know. I've done these a number of times through over the years at the library, and they're always a little bit different. Each workshop is different because the market is different. Everybody has different needs and so on and so forth. The question is always boils down to, in many cases, literally, how do you get started? How do you prioritize? How do you get started? I've done them in the past about trends and colors and all sorts of things, space planning. Tonight is going to be really the nuts and bolts. What is, what makes it work? What's going to get you able to make your own decisions? When I was writing this workshop, when I was, revisiting it and framing it up, I always start with, what am I going to call it? And the question is, well, what's going on in the world, So that's why it's get it noticed and sold no matter what's going on in the world, because there are some things that are transferable. So there we go. So my first question then is, what have you heard? Is this a buyer's market? Is it a seller's market? I can't see anyone else's hands, so Alba, it's all on you.
Oh, yeah. Well, I guess it was definitely a seller's market, although now I'm hearing the latest that that might be ending, might be pretty short-lived, right?
Well, there's, I think of it as 3 choices. It's buyers, it's sellers, and who knows? It depends. I mean, all of those are valid answers. And the reality is that, what was going on in February, do you think it was the same in July?
No.
What about 2 weeks ago? No.
No.
The market is always changing. There are always things that will, predicate one type of behavior over another. But as I said, tonight's going to be about talking about the basics, because there's all sorts of things that are happening. These are headlines that came from just publications this week. There's a shock. Let's see, when will it crash? Buyers rejoice. the outlook for next year. It's all over the road. But if you understand how to make your own best decisions, you're always going to be able to choose well, whatever your timing is. Okay. So, all right, a little bit about me, just because you got to wonder why I'm sitting here on the other end of the screen being able to talk about this.
Yeah.
So my name is Marie Graham. I'm the owner of the Refreshed Home and Orange Boom. I do listing and listing prep and design consultancy. I started the first part of my career, I was in design and sales, and the world, you know, with the internet becoming more ubiquitous over time, the world didn't need more places to buy things or more ideas. You're 2 clicks away from everything you can find online. What the world needed was somebody who could say, no, this is better for you and your room because, or this is not the way to go, this is better because. The idea, you know, my clients, even when I worked on full commission, my clients always wanted more from the interaction. Besides the result and a product, they wanted to be able to participate. They wanted to understand. They didn't want something done to them. So that was how I started my business, as a design consultancy. And I just fell into staging because when the bubble blew up in 2007, like when I started the business, the choreography of people buying and selling changed probably forever. It used to be if you were, you know, in your house and you were buying something else, if the new house became available first, of course you'd move to the other one because selling the last one was only a formality, right? The market has changed, the financial world has changed, so that does just not work anymore. I'm not a realtor, to be clear about where we're going into this. I'm not a realtor, I'm not a photographer, I'm not a contractor. Well, I guess I kind of am a contractor a little bit. I call myself a consultant and an advocate. I've had clients in different professions call me a midwife, a Sherpa. What was the other one? Oh, anthropologist. And that sounds, you know, kind of like, I don't know, prissy, but here's the thing. I've been in houses, I've been dealing face to face, you know, across the kitchen table with thousands and thousands of homeowners over 40 years. And I've been in the homes, the space, the stuff business. And I will tell you that the reason that we do what we do is in ourselves. It's science. There is a reason. We may not understand it. We may not know why we're driven to something, but there is a reason that makes sense of why we do what we do and why others do what they do. So the point of tonight, again, is to be able to understand that. And if we can, that makes it work better for you. So, so that was, as I said, that was how I started. Coming up, I think, on 15 years, thousands of houses ago, and almost $750 million worth of Westchester properties that were staged and sold. So I do believe our spaces are sacred spaces, and my position both here tonight and when I'm working with clients is to guide you, is to lead you, but again, to help you make your own best decisions, because your situation is very different from everyone else's. So about tonight, I want to talk about staging, quote marks, as a whole, because it's one of these nebulous terms. We don't really know exactly what it means. It actually goes back to the 70s. I was trained by the woman who holds the trademark on this word. She was a realtor in Seattle. The 1.0 version was totally visual. It was about everything that you saw. It was just that one-dimensional visual. And then the pendulum swung the other way, and it became about cost, you know, as much money as you could spend or as little money as you can spend, but it was about the money. My feeling is that to get a property ready for sale, you got to consider the people and the process. We have a number of senses. We have 5 senses. Beyond the seeing, we've got the hearing, feeling, taste, touch, and smell. Now, unless y'all are baking cookies for the open house, let's take smell, let's take taste off of the table. But smell comes into play when you're getting your house ready for sale. Feel, to a degree, someone's when I sold furniture, I could always tell the sofa someone was buying because they would be like petting it, they would be touching it. And I find the same thing in houses. When people are bonding with a property, they're going to run their hands over the kitchen counter. They're going to feel how the doors on the cabinets open and close. All of these things come into play and are important. So my definition of staging, which I don't know that you'll ever see it on TV, but it works for most people. It's whatever you can do to improve the market position of a property and ease your mind. Universal, way open, but absolutely attainable. You've got those two goals. Improve the market position and ease your mind. It is just a process. It's determining what is needed and doable, and then setting a plan to get it done. And what I usually ask people to tell me is, what are you willing to do to get what you want? That's fair. It's nobody's coming in and bulldozing you, right? Alba, does that make sense? Yeah, okay. All right, so tonight we're going to talk about how to see and feel things as buyers do and why that's so important. We're going to talk about how to make things less of a personal decision and more of a business decision, gentler way to say hard things. I will tell you that when you come in to something, actually caring about people and the results and understanding, being able to walk in their shoes, you're on the same side. It's not adversarial. I love it when people leave, they feel empowered, they feel more confident to make decisions. You're going to have a finer eye, which may be annoying to some people after the fact, but you will understand how to make your own best decisions. One thing I want to talk about, and again, I don't know where everybody else is coming from, but Alba, you mentioned, how do you even start? What are all of these parts? And a lot of people look at thinking about staging as the same thing of getting the house ready on the market. Or actually listing it, making it go live. Getting it ready is one thing. Being ready is another. Listing is a third. And if anyone's lived in a property for any number of years, I've got to tell you, being ready and getting ready gives you more control. You can't imagine how much control it has. It takes time to get things done. And even if it's just simple painting, getting the windows cleaned, having the grout cleaned, whatever the case is, whatever the little tasks that you've been busy living your life and haven't gotten around to. It was hard to line people up before the pandemic. Now it is incredibly hard. Everybody is so busy because everyone's spending so much time in their homes. So there's no such thing as getting too much of an early start, but don't confuse it. Don't derail yourself by saying, oh, it's the same thing as I'm deciding to sell. You're not. If you ever do decide to sell, you are pretty much 48 hours away from photographs and going live, if that's what you want. That's the part that's easy. The part that's hard is going through the boxes of the macaroni art in the attic, the report cards, all of that sort of stuff. So, okay. Any questions, anyone? No? Okay. The one thing that I would ask you to remember, whatever your journey is, and you're going to see this a couple of times, whatever you can do the best you can from day one. We'll talk a little bit more about what that is, but there's not an absolute standard. This is an exploration where you're going to figure out what makes sense and what's the best that you can do. Okay, the buyer is king. That's a hard thing to hear, especially if all you're reading about is the shortage of inventory and gee whiz, you've got this house. A lot of people, they get all tingly when they hear bidding wars. Their heart boom, 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 a little faster when they think about multiple offers, and it's all good and fine and it's absolutely normal. But the most successful sellers are going to remember that the buyer is king. The number one reason for that, buyers determine worth. It doesn't matter what the stager thinks, what the neighbor did last month, even what the agent pulls out all the comps for, especially in this market. It's all over the road. What matters at the end of the day is the person who holds the checkbook. And you've got to remember, as hard as it is, that worth is just what someone is willing to pay for something. It's not what you think they should pay. You're certainly entitled to opinion, but the buyers are going to speak louder than anything, whether they show up in droves or they don't show up. Your message will be very clear. So always remember, the buyer is absolute king. Okay. Worth is a tough topic, and I'm going to actually, I'm not going to go back. All right. Worth is a tough topic, so I try to put it in a gentler way. I look at online auctions a lot. I look at them to kind of get a sense of trends. I mean, what people spend on their discretionary income, what they don't spend. It's fascinating to me. So and I'm a customer sometimes too. Actually, this print, this Chagall print, I got it at an auction. But I look at these auctions, and a couple of months ago, there was one auction that had three things I was watching, and for different reasons. One of them was the wall unit that you see here, a monumental vintage oak wall, monumental, okay? The other was a potato chip box full of plastic flamingos. And the third thing was a set of Pyrex mixing bowls, the ones that are different colors and they nest inside of each other. I was looking at the wall unit, not because I want one. I used to design them and sell them, and they would sold for many thousands of dollars. So I was curious what these would go for. The pink flamingos, I didn't have a real need, but it was personal because I liked the idea of me being the kind of person that had a box of pink plastic yard flamingos at the ready. You never can tell when that could be handy. So I was very curious about that. And then the Pyrex bowls, was very personal. I miss my Nana, and my Nana and I used to make chocolate chip cookies many, many years ago, and she had those bowls. So I really like those bowls. So what I've got here are the screenshots of the winning bids of the three items. As you can see, the wall unit that sold for many thousands of dollars, one person bid on it for $1. Someone else got my flamingos. 14 people bid on it, $46. And the bowls, 35 bids for bowls, old bowls, $94. So just like these people, these who were bidding on these items, they weren't just buying wood, plastic, and glass. They were buying more. And that's what it is with your house. People are buying more than square footage, number of bedrooms or bathrooms, that type of thing. And you want to remember that. You want to touch buyers' hearts. All right. Sometimes I do stupid slides. This is kind of, it used to be big. Everything big sold because it was big. That was what we wanted to accomplish. But big is that one-dimensional visual. And I'm going to ask each of you tonight to think about what you can do that is more than just visual. I'm going to challenge you when you look at your own home is to go beyond. How else can you connect with the buyers that are out there? The truth of it is, we like to think, because we're a numbers and data-driven society, we think people buy from up here. They don't. People buy, I'll stand up, people buy from here. The head kicks in after the heart is fallen. And just remember that, you'll be fine. So another reason why the buyer is king, besides that they determine worth, they just cannot or will not use their imagination. And you've got to accept that, or you're going to have a hard road ahead of you. There are more people in this world who are blue-eyed. There are more people in this world who are left-handed than people who can visualize anything in front of them, anything beyond what's in front of them. You like to think they can use their imagination so that you don't have to do stuff. Doesn't work that way. Not if you want to get top dollar, not if you want to get your best price and you want to get it the most quickly. You do not trust people to use their imagination, because even if they can, they're not going to trust their instincts. This is the biggest purchase of their entire life, probably. They're not going to leave anything to chance. And the third reason that buyer is king is that because we all want to be respected, we all want to be wooed, we all want to feel good, be made to feel good and cared for. Have you ever been in a restaurant where it's somebody's birthday, a couple tables away, and all of a sudden this mob of people are approaching the table and they're huddled together, and then all of a sudden there's this birthday cake, and everybody starts singing, and then the whole restaurant is singing. My husband hates when I do that on his birthday, but I manage to do it every year. I manage to sneak in candles on something that he's eating, because we like to, be cared for. When we go to someone's house as a party, it's nice when the food looks good and the towels in the bathroom are nice and all that sort of stuff. We want to feel someone is paying attention to us. And that does not matter your price point, that goes a really long way. Here's key though. You need to remember who else you're wooing. Your parents, the buyers are going to bring parents, they're going to bring a friend, a colleague. There is going to be somebody else in that person's circle who loves them, who cares for them, who wants to look out for them, and probably also thinks they know more than their friend does. They're going to get that person's ear, and you want to make sure that you touch all the bases. You want to be able to speak to small little things that no one's going to think that they pick up on. I'll give you a quick example. When people do their closets, and when I say do their closets, meaning, organize, clean out, lighten up, all of that, something that costs no money and takes maybe 20 minutes, that blows people away, is when they put their clothes in color order. You got an older home, maybe not even that old of a home, but if I'm a buyer and I'm walking through and I look in the closet to see how big it is, and I see everything in color order, what am I going to think about that house? How am I going to think that that's been maintained, right? Parents in particular love to find the little things that are off, because they're sure their kids aren't going to watch it. So just pay attention, make sure you know who you're wooing. It's not just the buyer, it's going to be their whole group, and you want to make the buyer proud. So there's 3 ways that buyers decide. Whoops. Okay, well, there you go. 5 ways. There's 3 numbers, and the first number is 5 seconds, and this is why we decide in 5 seconds. Everything is about listing photos, and it's not that people look at monitors and all day and are, cruising through listings. I mean, some of them do, but we look at our phones and we look at them all the time. The picture on the far right, I can't see it. I've got a gallery of pictures here, but the picture on the far right, it's a gondola in Venice, and it's a picture taken by the gondolier. They're going through the canals in Venice, and they're all on their phones. So when you list your property, remembering buyers are nervous, they're insecure, they're nervous. Everything is what's about on their phone, okay? And they have these free home finder apps. And when your listing goes live, if it fits their filters, their phone will ping, they will pick it up, and they will look at it. It does not matter where they are. They could be in Venice, they could be walking across the street. They'll pick it up, they'll look at it, and they'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, and maybe 5. That is it. That is your opportunity to bond with people. Everything is about the listing photos. It needs to be crisp and clear, which is the quality of the photography, which is what your agent does. And yes, use an agent. We'll get to that later if you feel the need to discuss. Always use an agent. And then there's the composition, which is what I help people do. that it is engaging, that it looks good, and so on and so forth, because it is those 5 seconds that matter, that makes people decide, do I want to put this on the top of my to-see, or can I look at it again after lunch? So 5 seconds, you never underestimate what it takes to make a first impression. The next number that influences how people decide is 1 minute. And I always like to think about that first minute when people show up to the listing as a first date, a job interview, or more to the point, recent point of the first day at school. Do we not get crazy wanting to make sure everything is great? Why do we do that? Because what happens early on is everything. So you've got to make that first minute count. Now, if you've got a large house, that doesn't mean that you can let the upstairs slide. The challenges are different. If you've got a large house or an unusual floor plan, sometimes the challenge is to make the rooms memorable, because people are not going to remember. They're looking at maybe a couple of houses. If you painted everything beige, we'll get to that too. You painted everything beige, if the bathrooms all look the same, or the bedrooms, if the rooms are empty and there's nothing as a marker, people are not, we need to make in a large space, we need to make sure people find the rooms and they remember them. If it's a more modest space, like a co-op or a condo, you need to give people things to look at, to engage them, to bring in their curiosity. But it's that first, because some co-ops, you can stand in one place and see everything. And there's no place. You take 3 steps in the front door and that's it. So we need to create a reason. It'll show up in the listing photos and it'll show up in person for them to be engaged in the process. And then the third number, I always recommend buyers base their tasks on, their choices, is 30 days. And there's an asterisk there because there are some markets where it's really only 14 days. But whatever number is in there, whatever 2-digit number is in there, this is what it's about. When you list your property, you are given a gift, especially if your house has never been on the market before, or if it's been a while since it's been on the market. That first 30 days, 2 weeks, whatever, you can do no wrong. Your listing is new and fresh and shiny, and everyone wants to see it first, right? Everyone wants to be in there first, because of course there's low inventory. After 30 days, you're 2 clicks away from something like this, right? It's a lovely house. I've obviously blacked out the details because people don't need to know, I'm not trying to trash anybody ever, but I'm a consumer. I click on, this town. I see that over 2 months ago, $75,000 reduction. It's still on the market. So it's 120 days, which is roughly 4 months. Nearly 5,000 people have viewed it. Only 130 some odd saved it. Now, did 4,923 separate people view it? No. But one person didn't look at it 4,923 times either. There were a lot of people that looked at this house and nobody bought it. So Alba, because you're there and I can see your face, what are you going to see when you see, if you're looking at a house, what are you going to see if this comes up on the screen? Unmute yourself, please. Alba, I can't hear you. Could you unmute yourself? Little button on the upper
Yeah,
right.
no, yeah. So sorry, I didn't want you to hear my background noise here. Yeah, no, that it's not moving. Yeah, and that's not a good thing.
So that somebody found, other people who went and saw it found other things that were problematic, or they're going to assume it's overpriced. Even though it doesn't cost a buyer anything, most buyers don't engage with buyer agents until they've already made a lot of decisions on their own. So they're not going to know that, gee whiz, maybe you know, what else is going on with this house or something like that. They're just going to make a snap decision. And one of two things will happen at this point. Let's say, Alba, this is the house for you. You absolutely adore it. You know what it's worth, but you're seeing no one else is looking at it. So what are you going to do? You're going to mark it as a favorite and wait for the price to go down, right? Or you're just going to assume that there is something wrong with it. It's overpriced and you're going to pass, and that's the end of it, right? So use those 30 days judiciously. So Albert, to your question of how, you know, what do you do? How do you do? Whatever you're going to do, look at that first 30 days and give it your all. There's the answer to when is the best time to list your house is often, I should say, is often as soon as possible. But the really smart agents I know understand the value of making sure it's the best that it can be, because once it's out there for the whole world, it's out there. All right, so the best looking properties attract the most attention. Alba, unmute yourself again because nobody else is talking to me. All right, do you agree with that statement?
I agree.
Okay.
Sure.
Is there a weak link? Is there any weak part of that statement?
No, I think that people do notice, you know, the outside, they notice the landscape, they look at everything. And I'm thinking the way that I'm reading it, it all makes sense. And it's very true.
Okay.
I don't know if I
Well,
see a weak link.
the rabbit hole that most people go down is that best looking is very subjective. And we have very short memories. Like, for example, at one time, all of these things were considered best looking. I used to make a lot of money selling draperies like that in the middle. And those cell phones, those were the snazziest thing when they first came out, right? And let's not go with the hair. So best looking is subjective. Big, again, we spoke about that. That was very big. Big was big, but conspicuous consumption has been out of style for some time. So the way that the type of behavior that the market typically rewards, in other words, it makes you stand out, makes the house stand out, makes people be attracted to it. I created this infographic, and I don't want you to worry about reading all the letters because I'm going to send it to James at the library after the meeting, and he's going to share it with you. Just so you know, I don't have any idea who you guys are. I don't know how to reach you, and that's fine. When you present at the library, it's never a selling opportunity. So you can find me if you need to, if you have any questions. And actually, that's usually my gift when to the people who attend my seminars. If you have any questions after the fact, definitely feel free to reach out to me. If you have some pictures you want to send me, you know, email me, we can talk them through. I'm happy to do that. It's just my way of saying thank you to people who showed up. But I'm going to send you this infographic. I created this probably about 8 or 9 years ago, and it's been rewritten once or twice. Most people think of staging as bringing things in, and that is the very last thing that you do. Anyone who's in education or has any kind of sociology background, you'll recognize that this is modeling Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I took one class many years ago, never forgot it. And it was only, as I said, about 8 or 9 years ago that I realized this is how I always work. And basically, the premise is that each of us and each property has an innate best high point. In other words, the best it can possibly be. And the way that you achieve that is you start with the basics and you naturally, organically just ascend up. So you don't think about replacing the granite, the countertops in the kitchen if, there's no visible floor space in the living room. So I'll run through it very quickly, but you will have this and you can read through it at your leisure after tonight. The very first thing you do is depersonalize. And usually when I say that, at least when I first started doing these seminars, people did not like that word. I'd ask them, so what, I like to get people engaged in these workshops. So I said, what does that mean? And they're like, oh, take your stuff out so nobody, whatever. They parrot back what the HGTV show says, take your stuff out so people can see themselves in it. But what they really felt, and this is where the pushback came, is you think my dog is fat, my kids are ugly, and I've got bad taste. No, that's not it. That's not what it's about. Depersonalizing gives buyers too much information. We said they're king, but they don't need to know your life story, and they will use it against you. And it could be anything. It could be your personal information. They'll make a judgment. If you have a lot of degrees on your wall, they might make a judgment about that. I've done work over the years with a number of undercover police officers, and they have all sorts of certificates up on their walls and uniforms in the closet. No, we get opaque garment bags. We take the certificates down, we repaint the walls. Why? People don't need to know their guns in the house. Okay, there's all sorts of reasons to depersonalize it. I don't want to get into the weeds, but the point is it protects you and it lets people see the space. Okay, repair and replace. Do not go down the route of buyer allowance. Determine what doesn't work, what you can fix, and price it accordingly. If you go down the road of buyer allowance, what that means is you've got old carpet down. It's been, it was a nice color at the time. Now it's several nice colors because it's faded and changed colors or whatever. Okay, so it happens, stuff wears out. But you're like, oh, I'll just give them an allowance. Well, you're training people to find other things that they don't like in the house. So pulling up carpet is always a big thing. If there's wood floors underneath, and if a lot of times, if you've had carpet for a while, you win the floor lottery because the floors have been protected. If the floors are beat up underneath, at least you're removing that speed bump. You're letting people see what it is. You can get an estimate, let them know, how, let the agent have a written estimate of what it would cost to fix or what have you. But the point is, do what you can to repair and replace. That has to come first. And again, I'm going to underline it. In a time of COVID, you can't imagine how hard it is to get a toilet these days. Refrigerator parts, it's not like going and comparing 5 different prices online and just ordering something and it shows up. It doesn't work that way now. So repair and replace is a big headache for buyers. Get it to code. Let's say you've lived in your house 20 years and somebody lived in there a long time before that. And when you bought the house, there was always a deck, or there was a funny bathroom downstairs in what used to be a closet. You may have skated by if those things were not officially done, if there are no town records on that, even though it was somebody else who did it, you skated by. The ball is in your court. You are going to be held responsible as the current owner to remedy it. And again, why spend money on all the pretty fun la 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 things if you're going to have to pay to have a bathroom legalized or torn down, if you're going to have pay money to have a deck taken care of. So you want to be sure, really, really sure that you are to code. And that's a big part, it's one of the big things that agents can guide you on as well. Lighten up is just clearing out. Why? Because we can't not see color and light. So if there's a lot of stuff to look at, our eyes keep going back and forth through the photo, and the space gets smaller. And when the space gets smaller, money comes out of your pocket. So lighten things up. The gold standard now, for the most part, is clean, pristine, and move-in ready. Unless you've got a really unusual floor plan, either it's really small or it's just the flow isn't expected. Maybe it was an older house and things were added on and changed and whatever. For the most part, in a dining room, you know where the table goes. In a bedroom, you know where the bed goes. So clean, pristine, and move-in ready is, if the kids can put their head on the pillow the first night, you're golden. You're absolutely golden. Updates, always taken with the advisement of the agent that you're working with. Again, something that you should be leaning on them for is sometimes I hear people go, well, why would I improve it when I'm not going to live there? Because it's going to put more money in your pocket quicker. That's why. But within reason. And within reason is different for everybody. I just did for example, in Westchester County, the co-op and condo market is the co-op market is really a mixed bag. The condo market is flat. And I had a condo I recently did. The original owner had lived there, for 30 some odd years, and nothing was done. Everything was original. The walls were off white, the trim was off white, the ceiling was off white. She had old carpet. It was a first floor on a cement slab, so it was glued down. It was not particularly appealing. And what we did is it was one of the first times that I said, this 35-year-old bathtub needs to go. It was a plastic jacuzzi that was not good. I mean, it was really it had seen its day. So we did a lot of work. There was really no furniture to speak of, but fresh surfaces. We got the bathroom, new fixtures, new lighting fixtures. I think there was a new stove that we put in, new stove, yeah. Basically, I think he spent about maybe about $25,000, which was about 10% of what the expected selling price was. He got 50 over his highest wished for number, and he got that the first week. Why? It was clean, it was pristine, it was move-in ready. So, but take it under advisement with the agent that you're working with. And then the last thing is, when you bring things in, it's always nice, but again, just make sure you're on good ground with everything else. Any questions? James, is there anything in the chat box?
No, nothing.
Ah.
It's okay. They're listening. They're taking
Okay,
it in.
it's fine. It's fine. It's absolutely fine. James, I'll just talk to anybody.
I know.
I love talking about this because, I mean, what I do isn't particularly noble, I don't think, but being able to be a witness to see people get unstuck and move on with their lives is a wonderful thing. So I love what I do. And it just, it appalled me that the only model was the 1.0 version of bring stuff into an empty lakeside house. So anyhow, so this is the nuts and bolts of it. So again, whatever you can do, be committed to doing the best you can from day one. So the reasons that we want to, again, pay so much attention to the physical condition of the house. There's a number of things that aesthetically, when you pay attention to them, they put money in your pocket. The reason is that, to the statement we made before about the most attractive house gets the most interest. You get the serious buyers come out soon, and serious buyers are not just people who want to throw you a big number. They're people who have a big number in their checkbook. They are committed, they're serious, they're ready to move forward and do what it takes to get a property they want. Now, what's really key now in this market where things are happening fast is that you want to get a substantial deposit. It's not just you get a good number, you want to get a good offer. And part of when an offer means the terms and conditions of that number. So a substantial deposit, let's say your house is listed for $600,000. Let's say somebody bids it up to 675 or even 700. Well, what happens when the appraiser comes in and says, you know what, 550? That's what the house is worth, and that's what the bank is going to give you a mortgage based on, 550. So you're going to need somebody else to come up with that extra money. So this is why you want a very serious buyer, because if the appraisal process and the mortgage process, if they don't get approved for all they want to borrow, they're going to be able to come up with it. That is really key. And most people don't realize that because they're so high off of the idea of multiple offers. They're still tingling from bidding wars. So this is the business end of why it should look good. Buyers will bond with a property, and that is really good. You want to touch people's hearts because not to sound manipulative, but let's say you have a contingency that you need to deal with. You need a specific closing date, or you've got to legalize that debt. Or let's say it's a co-op. My gosh, I don't know if anybody has co-ops or familiar with them. Co-ops have an extra layer of process, which is getting board approval. And boards don't meet regularly. A lot of boards don't think that they're there to serve their people. They're just there to, I mean, they do things but they're not like at the ready to meet your person and vet them right away. So if your buyer is committed in their heart, as well as financially to this property, that will get you through. This is another reason why you want to have the property look the best it can be. Things can also change. If interest rates go up, again, buyers can't afford as much house because of interest rates going up. Again, you want them committed to that process because they may have to go and borrow money to make a better deposit from mom or dad, go into their 401k. I mean, there's a number of different ways, equity from a current house if they have to sell it, but things change. So you definitely, you want to put your best foot forward in that way. This one's for you. I keep saying do the best you can, because what keeps people up at night is the I coulda, shoulda, woulda, the what ifs. I should have, what if I did this? What if I did that? I will let you in on a secret. Nobody lives in those pictures you see in the magazines. Nobody lives in those rooms that you see on TV. Most of us are pretty much the same. I've been in houses of every price point, every zip code in Westchester. We all pretty much have a lot in common, and there is no shame and no regret if you do the best that you can. There's nothing wrong with that. You price it accordingly, but you don't want to stay up at night and even weeks, months after the fact, wonder what would have happened if. And then here's the last thing. Details really do matter. And there's so much that can be done for zero or even very little money. Albert, to your point of what do you do and so on and so forth, a lot of the questions that you had brought up about how do you start downsizing, and I mean, those are really kind of getting into the weeds of how to do it. And I'd love to be able to go into that with you a little bit more. But assuming that you've cleared out, you've lightened up, you've donated, you've put things in storage, you've moved it to the new house, whatever the case is, assuming that that's done, things that you can do, even with your art, when art is precisely hung, it looks that attention has been paid, when the closets are in color order, when there's fresh fruit. This sounds very silly, but when you, in all the properties that I stage, I always put a bowl of real fruit that's fresh, and I make it one type of fruit, because if it's not one type of fruit, then it's just a snack. We want to make an architectural statement, but the underlying is that it's fresh fruit. We're not going to be here for a long time. We're selling quick, and we're making pie next week. So there's so much that can be done. And again, I will tell you that when I first started doing this, I saw so many people lose so much money because they were intimidated. They reacted to the arbitrary, the pedigree, the perceived pedigree, that's what it has to be. It doesn't. We all want the same thing from our houses. We want clean, pristine, safe, move-in ready. That's the deal. I want to talk about style. Now, when you create listing photos, styling sounds like a fancy schmancy kind of word, very subjective again. It can feel, some people can push back because they think their style is just fine. And what I liked about this particular definition, the purpose of this isn't to judge one person's style over another. The definition is about intent. It's about choosing to do something, at least that's what I read in it, choosing to do something very specific for a specific result. to arrange in a particular way, to make in a form for a particular reason, combining complementary elements. It's all about being purposeful. And whatever you do, you want it to be purposeful, because people do get that. People do understand. Whoops. Whoops. Okay. All right. See, now there's my bowl of fruit. Does that look fabulous or what? This is one of my favorite pictures. I didn't even set it up. I just told her what to do. She did it. This kitchen was a mess. She had so much stuff on that shelf. She had a lot of Fiestaware all over the place. And white space is good because it looks bright, it looks clean, it looks fresh. These are all important things, especially during a pandemic. But hits of color makes your eye follow around the rooms. So you want to remember, when it comes to listing photos, is that most people look at them on a 3-inch phone screen. They'll look at it on a monitor maybe, but when you look at it on a 3-inch phone screen, it looks really different. We can't not see color and light. So the point is that if you've got white walls, beige carpet, and a big honking brown leather sectional, your eye is going to stop at the brown sectional. You're not going to see the rest of the room. You're not going to see the size of it. In this picture, I love that she's got color behind the glass doors. She's got the 6 plates, which are precise and all of that. And then if you look back into the dining room, she's got the spider plant in the window and the light on the china cabinet. It keeps your eyes engaged. It's contrast. Go with solids and go with contrast colors, because that is what reads in these types of photos. And if you have visual texture, that also engages. In this particular picture, it's stepped out, so the eye is going to look at it longer. For those of you that might not be aware, our MLS gives you 36 slots. Every listing has 36 opportunities to show off their space. Now, that may be photos, it may be maps, floor plans, pictures of the town, other notable things. What ends up happening is up to you and your agent. You guys will all discuss it. But you want to create pictures that make people stop, because as they're flipping through these pictures, let's say they spend a quarter of a section on each picture before they go on to the next. If you give them something to look at, instead of a quarter second, maybe a half second, heck, maybe even a second, they'll look at it. That may not sound like a lot, but you multiply that times 30 pictures, cumulatively, those eyeballs are on the screen looking at your listing for a lot more time than they would be normally. And that, my friends, is a very big deal. So think about creating that visual texture. When you can show function, function is value. Like, again, big conspicuous consumption, nobody's doing that anymore. I mean, for the most part. There are still some people, but it's not what it used to be. Function equals value, and value is in the eye of the beholder. So here's a quick run through on how to create that in listing photos in very easy and inexpensive ways to do that. Okay. Which pie are you going to eat? The one on the left or the one on the right? I'm guessing the one on the right, because color energizes us. We love color. White walls are the kiss of death in listing photos. I love that. White walls are the kiss of death, unless there's things on them. And I'm going to show you some pictures of white walls with things on them that draw the eye around. But that white on white, deadly tundra kitchen, don't do that. For the love of God, don't do that. Add some color, add some life, make us feel real, make us want it. This is why we don't do white walls. You just stop at the furniture. There are boxes growing out of the walls. That doesn't feel like a house I'd want to spend time in, does it? Alba, I can see your face. No? Okay. You're a good sport, by the way. You're a very good sport. Thank you. All right. So see what I did here? Draw the eye. Get it? Drawing eye. Okay. This is a house I did a couple years ago in Chappaqua. To the owner's credit, she had hired a decorator many years before me. So this is everything that she had, with the exception of the art and the pillows. The agent wanted to paint the fireplace, the turquoise fireplace. I said, no, 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 no. The windows on the far right of the picture are the front of the house. So you're walking in the living room, you turn your head 90 degrees to the right, that's what you see. So you see how we've got the turquoise pillow on the sofa, then you've got a little bit of that up on the wall, the artwork, you've got the fireplace, and then, oh yeah, you've got some pillows back there, you've got a turquoise recliner. The eye is going around the room, and when the eye goes around the room, it registers how much space there is. This was a condo in Briarcliff over on North State Road. It had been, they were very big collectors of art and mid-century modern. Everything was gray. The walls were gray. The ceiling was gray. And they decided to paint it all white as opposed to colors. I said, okay, they had the kind of art and furniture and the look that it worked. But you can see that you've got the red in the near on the chair, the red pillows, the throw, the red art over the sofa. And then if you take a second to blink, you'll see that in the back room there, in the office, there's some art on the wall. And then out on the patio, there's some bright yellow chairs. This is not fussy. These are not expensive. That agent actually bought those chairs on the online auction I told her about. Said, buy those chairs, you're going to need them. This was I want to say $125,000 co-op in Bronxville. And again, the floor is beat up. I don't know if you could see it, but again, longtime owner, very neglected, an awful lot of deferred maintenance. And it was a garden apartment, so you were coming up the stairs, and this is what you essentially saw at the top of the stairs. And this is a 1-bedroom, 1-bath co-op, very modest space. So by layering, red is the theme here, in the pot and the flower, and then in the back, you've got some more flowers. You can see the color on the wall standing out from the trim. Another reason that you don't do, one color. You want it, when you have an older space and there's interesting trim and doors, it brightens up the space and it contrasts. But again, you're like, oh, what does that kitchen look like? And when you went into the kitchen, you could appreciate all the stuff that I had in there too. But you're just drawing people in. I want you to capitalize on the outdoor space. Outdoor space does not have, it doesn't get counted in listing, in the specifications of the listing. So anything that you can do to enhance, to make people notice it, and to extend the season of listing space or outdoor space is big money in your pocket. To that point, get the patio furniture out in March. Get a fire pit. Put the fire pit out and put a blanket over it. Get that set up, because all of a sudden there's life after Labor Day. Okay. These are some pictures. All right. This doesn't have to be fancy. I think not fancy is much more real. I'll tell you, when I have people go through a staged house, property that I've helped get ready for sale, when they say to the agent, oh, this is lovely, it doesn't look like it's been staged. That's the best compliment I get. And Barbara or Lowen, if either of you are agents, you know that when a client says to you, oh, this house is obviously staged, that is not a compliment, because people don't want to, they don't want to feel like a smoke and mirror type of thing. And I think real keeps it real. This particular picture, this I found on the internet, but I'll tell you, a couple of years ago, I always look at listing photos. So I was online and I happened to be looking at properties in northern Westchester that were between $1 and $2 million. And I'll tell you that no matter what you're looking at, if you look at enough of them, they all look the same. You don't see them anymore. It's just like a brownie. You take a bite of a chocolate brownie. Oh my gosh, it's the best brownie in the world. 4 bites in, you know, your taste buds are like dull. It doesn't register. So at any rate, I'm looking, I hope you see the connection. Does that make a connection? Okay. So I'm looking at these houses and they're high end and they're all gorgeous. They all have the double staircase, the marble floors, the crystal chandelier. It's all fabulous. The backyard, the patio, they've all got the pool, so on and so forth. This one listing I saw, the last picture was something very much like this, where someone got in the house, got in the pool and took a picture of the dog with a ball. And that, if I had been a buyer, that would have been the first house I wanted to see, because that told me everything I wanted to know about if I could really live in this house. I call them aspirational photos. You want to touch people's dreams. I'm going to go around real quick. A workout space. This is a property I did not too long ago. They had all the stuff. They just had a lot of other junk in the room. You make a dedicated workout space. Huge function for buyers today. Huge. Okay, this was taken in my car. I have people that give me food when I do a consult. And this particular person, we were down in their basement and they had all these shelves of canned tomatoes. And I said, do you do this? And they said, oh, yes. And I said, get 2 or 3 of them up there and put them on the counter in the kitchen. People are going through that house. I want them to know that when someone buys this magic house, because this was in Northern Westchester, it was kind of like a Green Acres type of property. They were going to be able to do canning and have their own garden and vegetables. So that was that. If you've got a pet, if your house is pet friendly, a leash hanging someplace, a water bowl, it's not a bad idea. We don't want to smell the dog. And I have a very big dog. So I say that tongue in cheek, but we want to know that if I could have a dog there if I wanted to. That's a dream. The house underneath it, the mudroom, this was a house in Croton. I did this about 3 or 4 years ago. And they had 4 sons who all played lacrosse. Do I need to tell you what their mudroom looked like? What is a dream of a mother with 4 children who play lacrosse? Order. So I think she spent about, I don't know, $30 on baskets. And everything got lined up. See how she even put the lacrosse sticks at an angle in each of them? That's somebody's dream right there. You know, you didn't have to spend a lot of money, but you cared enough to make it look good and touch someone else's dreams. The basement sectional, we brightened it up because it's a basement. We just, you know, about $50 worth of bright pillows that we used in the rest of the house too. But that just brightened up. That's a room, that's a destination. It's not just the basement. It's a living space. And then the, I'm blocking, was that baby feet behind the boxes? I think it's baby feet. I'm gonna do the one underneath it, the little reading nook. This was a house in Hastings. And there are laws that you can't, how you present a house, how you describe a house is, you can't, for example, say things like it's family friendly, it's a great school district. You can't characterize certain things like that. And there's a lot of reasons and I understand, and that's fine. But this happened to be in an area that the way that, I don't want to say you get around it, but the selling point of this particular property, Hastings is, I don't know if anybody knows Hastings. Hastings does not have like a killer football team. They're not known for their lacrosse. They're known for their arts and smart, and they have a lot of national merit scholarships that they give out. Books and knowledge is revered. So this was a little Cape house, and what we did is we just put moldings on the wall. It's just like a little nook. It can't be more than 4 feet across. Little chairs, books for the kids. How cool is that, right? You're telling people when they buy this magic house, knowledge is revered and it's a good vibe. These are all things that are just, they're just real, and they really go across every kind of social scale. Okay, these are aspirational pictures. I'll touch on them quickly. Their problems and how we got around them. Upper left was a house in one of the Salems. It was a lakeside community, very modest houses. They used to be summer bungalows. There was a bike trail around there. Well, this garage was really small, and we needed to show that a car could fit in it. So what we did is we took the bicycles out and put the yellow mums on either side so that we defined the space. We made it cheery, we made it bright. The house went on the market right around this time of year. The cars in there, and we got bicycles. We're pointing to not just a plus of the community, but a lifestyle type of thing where this is an active community. The house below it was in Yorktown, and my husband's from Yorktown, so I can say that. Yorktown thinks that they invented lacrosse, and the way to any property in Yorktown is do something with lacrosse. So we got a kid's goalie from the neighbor. We just put it in the yard. It did two things. It just reminded buyers what was special about Yorktown, but it also gave, I don't know if you can see that it's kind of bare, the yard. There really wasn't much else in there, and it gave some perspective. It told people with no words that the yard was flat, that it was clear, and there was space to put a goal in. The bottom picture, the binoculars, I love this picture. This is in Crotonville off of Old Albany Post Road. And we're just south, we're in between Ossining and Croton, looking towards the river. And this guy, it was a fabulous, it wasn't fabulous like big fancy, it was like the weirdest house, but it was so cute and so cool, and I loved it. And he had these binoculars. So, you know, I mean, you just put the binoculars on there, because what are the, marsh for but bird watching? To the right of that, we put mums to draw people across the bridge, and so they weren't wondering, is that the neighbor's space? The house, the dock above it, that was in the T-Town area, and I claim absolutely no credit for this, but let's put this under the electron microscope. This was a major redo of a house, and the photos were being shot April 1st of all days, and the weather had been really nice the end of March, but can you guess what happened on the morning of April 1st? It snowed. And I'm like, oh, but it was what it was. So I only saw this picture after the listing went live. The house had like lake rights, that was their property. There's an Adirondack chair at the end of the deck looking out at the lake. And if you can see, there's no footprints in the snow. This is why you hire a good agent, because they hire good photographers. This photographer, bless his heart, he just took that picture. And when you think about it, this listing was going live the second week of April. After a long winter, snow's melting, we're getting back to the lake. I mean, that's just a wonderful aspirational thing. Fire pits are great, just to move it along here. They don't cost a lot of money. The bottom bottom right, they had that bench. It was just sitting in the woods. This was the house in Chappaqua with the turquoise wall. This bench was just sitting there nowhere. I said to her, can your guy build a fire pit? They had these stones on the property. They just put them around. They put the pit in the middle. And now all of a sudden you've created value. You've created purpose. You've created a destination. And then, I don't know if you can see the upper right picture. This was a house in Purchase, and it had a man-made waterfall. And the pictures were taken in March when there was no greenery. And my plan was to take, these are actually little kids' plastic Adirondack chairs, like $8 at Christmas tree shop, something like that. They're like maybe 18 inches tall, something like that. My plan was to put them on top of the hill so that when people came out of the house, they could see the chairs at the top of the hill. They would stand out because there were no leaves. The photographer, again, bless his heart, he went in back of the chairs, so you can't tell that they're kids' chairs, but looked down at the waterfall in the house. And I thought that was awesome. So you can think about what your buyers are going to want. Think about what they're going to respond to. And that doesn't cost you a lot of money. And you can find things, you can do things, and you can create value that will make people get to yes a lot sooner than, white walls and not much of anything else. Here's a secret about design I want you to remember about tonight. Good design is intuitive. our heads, one of the things that I probably do the best job of is untangling people's minds. We listen to our, design, decorating, houses, real estate, it's part sport and entertainment these days. We get tangled up with what this one says, what that one says, what we see at Home Goods on display, yada, yada, yada. Good design is really intuitive. You shouldn't have to work hard. It should be very simple. It should make sense, and it should truly serve the people who use it. So when things just look big, some like houses that were built in the early mid-90s, they've got 3-story entries. Okay, what does that do? Besides take up a lot of heat. I do a lot of big houses, and that is the challenge, especially houses of those vintage, is that to show a purpose. And if it makes sense to you, it'll make sense to your buyers. And that's the overview that I would leave with you. So do the best you can from day one. And I thank you. How are we on time? All right, not a little over, not so bad.
A little over, but that's okay. Not a
All
problem. It was great. It was great. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Marie. Does anybody have any questions or comments for Marie?
Thank you. It's saying something that James is entertained. This is about the 9th presentation he sat through and is still interested. So
absolutely.
It was
no
great.
questions? No?
I loved it. Just getting some ideas for way down the road, but certainly something that we can even incorporate in the homes that we're living in currently, right? Our own spaces too. When you think about what you want to do in terms of designing, or again, kind of.
Well, that's it. If you're planning out ahead and you're thinking, the youngest is starting high school, and so we're going to stick around another 4 years, do stuff now and you get to enjoy it. If you do a new bathroom now, that's 3.5 years that you get to enjoy a great bathroom. And that's still modern by today's standard. That's still a new bathroom for all intents and purposes. It's also an easier financial hit as well. But Alba, I did want to address one thing that you said in terms of the downsizing and where do you start and how do you, coalesce. I just want to share one tip. This wasn't on the presentation, but you were so nice of having the camera on and all that. There are 2 parts to getting ready, and most people get overwhelmed. They're like, oh, because they try to do both at the same time. And the way that I explain it, and I hope you find this helpful, there's the head and the heart, and then there's the hands. All right. You and your family members are the head and the heart. You're the only one who's going to know that what books stay, that soup tureen goes to Aunt Emily. Your niece always wanted the china, whatever the case is, you're the only one who's going to know that. Same thing with any kids in the house, what can stay, what can go. Because sometimes parents are like, oh, no, we can't change the room. The kids are like, get it out of here. So be the head and the heart and look for hands to help. We only have so much bandwidth, and it is very stressful. And if you're in the groove, you're going through the books and you're going, when you have a big bookshelf and you take books down and like you're reading the spines, just flip the ones that you're going to donate to the library. Is that a thing now, James? Are we back to donating books?
We are back to donating books. Yes. As of after Labor Day. Yep. People can donate books to the friends. Yeah.
Okay. Do you have semi-annual book sales, or is it an ongoing thing downstairs in the lower level?
Well, we do have a free bookshelf downstairs in the lower level. So that's an ongoing thing. We put books out there. And then we have an annual book sale. So that'll be coming up in October.
Okay. Oh, soon. So, all right. So if you have books and you have a lot of books because you love books, but you need to part with them, you go through the whole line of them. You want somebody behind you with a carton, taking those books out and putting them in the cartons. Because if you're like, go, go, go. Oh, I need more boxes. Oh, I have to go to Home Depot. I might as well stop and get lunch. It goes right out the window. So stay focused. And the way to ask people for help is not to say, could you come over and help me get my house ready for sale? Don't do that. Targeted asks. Think of people in your circle, start with those first. If, you know, maybe if there's teenagers in your life or the neighbors, you know, people that you know, that you trust and that can do things. Say, can you help me for 3 hours on Saturday? I need you to help me clear out my bookshelf for 2 hours on Saturday. Be a very targeted ask, because it's just overwhelming for people to hear it and they don't know what's involved. And you just ask a lot of people. If you got a lot of stuff, ask a lot of different people. There are also people that get hired to do this. I don't do that, but part of my